Bonjour, Emily.
Bonjour, Caroline.
We are the real Fishwives of Paris, and it's our job to basically party poop. We're party pooping the poopy party of fake news when it comes
Mhm.
to food and wine.
Yeah, and we're about to poop in the biggest party food that France makes.
We're gonna poop on champagne today. Today we're gonna
We're
party
gonna
poop.
shit all over your champagne.
We're gonna shit all over it. No, we're gonna myth bust a little bit about this region that we love so much. And
Um,
this wine that is so popular, and I think it's very misunderstood.
yeah.
So, what I think let's just open up with the biggest turd we're gonna lay today.
So champagne is iconic, and I think anything that has iconic has crazy myths and legends about it. And of course, the most famous about champagne, I think, is the 17th century Benedictine monk
It's
who's
always the fucking monks with
monks are
us.
just doing everything
Yeah, they were definitely they were knee deep in this stuff, that's for sure.
in the poop.
Knee deep in the manure.
So Dom Pérignon ostensibly comes running out of wherever he's been making wine and is like, "Brothers, I see stars. There's stars in my glass." True or false, Caroline?
False.
So apparently, not only did he not discover the bubbles, he was actually like part of what his vibe was trying to get rid of the bubbles.
Well, this is where I can come in with a little bit of technical wine
Yeah.
wine schooling.
Because champagne's not a wine like any other.
So champagne basically is the champenois method of production, but it is a sparkling wine from the Champagne region in France. Like everything French, this is an appellation, it's an AOC, it is protected. This is a historic region that made the same grapes as Burgundy. So we see Pinot Noir and Chardonnay as the primary grape varieties in Champagne. And up until the 1700s, this was still wine. This was wine that they were making, and that was mostly being served in Paris, right? It's very close to Paris. They were kind of always at war with Burgundy, like who got to grace the king's table. Obviously, Burgundy is better, but Champagne's closer.
Yeah.
And
And sort of where champagne is on the map conveys like a certain quality flavor to the grapes, right? Like, isn't this a wine that has a lot of acidity, or there was something to do with the acidity?
for sure, so Champagne is a region that is very far north for wine.
Right. Okay.
Certainly back in the day before climate change, this was about as cold as it gets for
Wait, is
grape
climate
growing.
change real?
Climate change real? Oh my god, sorry to bust, that
Damn it.
bubble, but
Okay.
yes. And it is of great concern to champagne producers because it is, fucking everything up. So, sorry, we're swear bears on today's episode of The Real Fishwives.
I mean, I feel like when you're talking about champagne, like you got to take things
Just
seriously.
loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
So, basically, we, are on Cameroonian clay, which is a really special type of soil. There's a lot of different soil types, but generally we are on, like, limestone and clay in Champagne. And that gives these, yeah, really nice, sharp wines. But the acidity is less about, I think, the soil than it is about the fact that it's cold. So the
Mhm.
ripeness is gonna take a lot longer to be achieved, and you're gonna garde la fraîcheur. You're gonna keep the acidity,
Mhm.
freshness. Um, but the bubbles in the wine that were, again, a flaw, a major debilitating flaw, that's from the fermentation, right? So when we make wine, we have grapes, the sugar in the grapes is there. It's just natural sugar. What eats the sugar, Emily?
The yeasties.
The yeasties eat the sugar and they poop out. This is the theme of today's episode: carbon dioxide and alcohol.
Mm.
Normally in winemaking, that carbon dioxide is just going to blow away. Wineries are pretty dangerous during fermentation.
Yeah.
You remember that? People died.
Yeah.
It's going. This happens every year, but I remember it was like an Italian family a couple of years ago. It was like two sons and a father.
Just like explosion
No,
or carbon
dioxide
poisoning. Okay.
Yeah, carbon
Yeah.
dioxide poisoning. So that's rough.
Yeah.
But basically, the problem in Champagne, again, because it was very cold,
Mm.
is that fermentation after the harvest would get stuck. It would get too cold. The yeasties would go to sleep and hibernate. And then they would wake back up again when it got warmer. And if that happened after bottling, what do you get?
Pop, 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 pop of your corks.
No, exploding bottles.
Oh,
And
worse.
yes.
So much worse.
So much worse. And if one bottle explodes, it triggers a chain reaction in the delicate glass and everything explodes. So this was a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big problem. So Dom Pérignon, as you mentioned, did not invent champagne on purpose, and he was actually really working hard to try to avoid having exploding bottles.
So he didn't. Dom Pérignon didn't manage then to stop the sparkles, because we still have sparkles, although I think they're better sparkles than they were then, which I'm sure you're going to tell us a little more about.
I will tell you how they make the bubbles.
Yeah. But I know that he did manage to innovate one thing. Like, he's not just a random monk that we're like, you were going to give you a role in the making of champagne. He did figure out how to make white champagne from red grapes.
Oh, the Blanc de Noir.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. And Dom Pérignon was a prolific and very accomplished winemaker. Like, that is real.
That's a true thing.
That is true.
Okay.
And that's really interesting that he invented Blanc de Noir, because I didn't know that. And maybe he didn't invent it, but he perfected it. I mean,
Yeah.
all of these things and all of these products that were developed by monasteries, they had the advantage of building upon learned knowledge and writing and their predecessors. And they were really places of experimentation and learning. And that's one of the reasons why so many amazing French products come out of these monastic spaces. But Blanc de Noir is white of black, and that is basically a very delicate pressing of Pinot Noir or Pinot Meunier, the red grapes in Champagne, to basically have almost no skin contact, because the color in red wine comes from the skins.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we press really gently and we don't let the juice interact with the skin at all, we are left with white wine, basically. And so there is a lot of white champagne that is still made from red grapes.
Okay. And I think like most of the champagne that people drink today is some mix of those grapes that you were talking about. So we're drinking white champagne that has some red grapes in it.
Absolutely. Most champagne is going to be Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Meunier.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 other grapes that are legally permitted. Those are Arbane, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, and Pinot Meunier. Yeah. And so I know Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, but Pinot Meunier and Arbane, don't know anything about that. And I think there's very little of it, honestly.
Yeah.
Mostly we're in Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Chardonnay. Someone said that they renamed Meunier. Oh, now they're not calling it Pinot Meunier, they're just calling it Meunier.
Oh.
Someone actually'd me about that the other day, and I was like, oh.
But the artist formerly known as Pinot Meunier.
Exactly.
Okay.
The artist formerly known as Pinot Meunier. And most of the champagne we're going to see is a blend of that. It's going to mostly be Chardonnay.
Mm-hmm.
When we have one that is only red grapes, it's a Blanc de Noir. When we have one that is only Chardonnay, it's a Blanc de Blanc.
Right. And so when we say those things in French, obviously, because we're fluent in French and we live here, Blanc de Noir means white from black. So white from black grapes, red grapes, and Blanc de Blanc means white from white. So, okay, so we have our Dom Pérignon. He's trying to get rid of the bubbles. It actually takes British technology to sort of harness the bubbles, keep these bottles from exploding.
Well, and one of our goals here on Real Fishwives is to alienate and enrage French people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say this, and it is true, and you can be mad. Bon, tu peux être en colère avec moi, les Français. Mais champagne is English in so many ways. This is a product that would never have existed without the English market and without English technology. And why don't I talk about the tech a little bit, and then you tell us about the market, because this is really interesting too.
Yeah.
So champagne would not exist without English glass technology. So basically in the 1600s, they ran out of wood for their fires, and they started using coal. So up until that time, coal had actually really been like avoided because it's gross. And they really only turned to it in desperation, but it was able to make much hotter fires, which made much more stable and sturdy glass. So with the better glass technology, they could bottle these wines at pressure. And that was a really big turning point for all sparkling beverages. And so they were using it for cider in England and also in champagne.
The glass isn't the only thing that the British are bringing to champagne, right?
No, this was actually made popular. Sparkling champagne was made popular in the English court before it was popular in the French court. It's actually brought to London by an exiled marquise who was kicked out of France, and it found favor among the fancy folk, the aristocrats of London. and then made its way back to Versailles.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, I mean, these champagnes then, they're sparkling, they're fancy, but they still don't look the way that champagne does today, right? Because we haven't quite mastered the method champenoise that makes champagne so special as compared to other sparkling wines.
The first ones, and stumbling upon it, was really the stuck fermentation.
Mm-hmm.
But the method champenoise, as we know it, is creating a normal still wine
Mm-hmm.
that is quite low alcohol, high acidity. So they pick pretty early. We want to be around 7-8%.
Mm-hmm.
And then we add sugar and yeast to it and basically top it up. That's called the liqueur de tirage.
Mm-hmm.
And then we slap a beer cap on it and we let it sit and undergo a second fermentation. And so that is where the bubbles are coming from.
Okay. And that's different from something like Prosecco.
That's different from Prosecco. Prosecco, that process is happening in the tank, not in the bottle. And it's different than a pet nat, which the earliest champagnes and the wines from the Limoux, those would have been in this, naturel style where it is just the first fermentation that is trapped inside the bottle.
Okay. And it takes us obviously a lot of time to go. It's not like a click of the fingers. This Dom Pérignon legend makes it seem as though we went from still to sparkling in 5 seconds. And so we have this progression, obviously, of like a sort of pet nat. And then we have a method champenoise style sparkling, but it might not be as clear or as limpid or as perfect. And then we come into the 19th century.
And all of the sort of technology that you need to make a bottle of champagne is an assembly line.
Mhm.
These are big machines. And that's because we need to, basically like add the liquid, we need to put the cap on it, and then we also need to remove that yeast at the end.
Mhm.
So that's something called disgorgement. And that is something that before you were doing by hand, which it also took them a while to figure out how to do that. I mean, that was invented by Widow Clicquot.
The veuve, the
Veuve.
widow.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really cool. I mean, we are the Fishwives. We champion women in history. We're not going to rewrite history, but there's a lot of really cool stories that never get talked about enough.
And she doesn't even get a name.
Right.
You
The
know?
widow. And that's, her status as a widow and the status of many champenoise widows is actually what made them so powerful, because there was a law in the Napoleonic Code that said that women couldn't inherit property. The exception was widows. So you have all these really badass women in Champagne who own property, who have been widowed, who have no more husband,
Who are business bitches.
who are business bitches. And so what did Widow Clicquot do?
Barbe Nicole Clicquot Ponsardin.
Fancy ass name.
She invented riddling and racking. And so that is removing the yeasty gunk left behind by the second fermentation. And so before that, if you were a fancy lady in Versailles and you had a glass of champagne, you'd be left with, some sludge in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to get a whole new glass. And obviously that was not very sexy. And so we wanted to find a way to get rid of it. And so Barbe Nicole, Madame Clicquot, she basically figured out that sludge, if you moved it really slowly over time, it would basically descend the neck of the bottle and it would be something that you could then take out. So basically, you're aging your bottle like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it has this layer of yeasty gunk. But the yeast is not just like one layer, it's sort of in multiple layers. So if you touch it at all, move it at all, it will just poof back up into the wine. And so what Madame Clicquot figured out is that if you turned it a little bit, a quarter turn, and twisted it each day for about a month, you could basically slide the gunk down the neck. And so they would just twist the bottles a little bit. And there still are little old men scuttling around caves doing this, although it's pretty rare.
I've seen them doing it, though. It's so
rare.
cool.
We do it in gyro pallets now. And then the gunk gets to the bottom. So then back in the day, we are going to do the disgorgement by popping off the beer cap, and then flipping it as fast as possible and shoving a cork into it. Some people still do that. I've seen some YouTube videos and it's crazy.
Yeah.
But most people are doing this with an assembly line. And before they shove the cork in it, they're going to top it back up with a dosage. That is usually a sweetened wine, sweetened with grape sugar. The dosage is something that is not very popular these days. Are you finding that in Paris?
Oh, definitely. And I think that's been something we see Champagne governed by so many trends over time. And I think this idea of Champagne now, I think everybody wants not just dry, but they want brut nature.
They want a wine with no added sugar at all. And this is achievable now because of climate change, because the grapes are riper. So actually you get more richness just texturally because you have more sugar. You're
Mm-hmm.
getting more ripeness, you're getting more richness. And so it's easier to make those really dry wines. It's also a trend thing.
Mm-hmm.
In Russia, they still like sweet champagne.
Yeah.
You see it almost never on the French market or the American market.
No, I mean, Marie Antoinette was probably drinking really, really sweet champagne.
They were adding sugar to it. It was really like almost sour,
Mhm.
and we like that right now. Like it's kind of trendy. I think it's like a backlash against Robert Parker and all these big sweet reds that have been kind of pushed on us for decades. This is the opposite of that. This is really linear. It's really lean. We love that right now, but it is trend based. And I think also just added sugar is like the devil, but a
Yeah.
lot of really great champagnes have a little bit of sugar in them. And it's not really detectable. Like it doesn't taste sweet, but they're really awesome.
So you mentioned that these developments, as we're moving forward, as we're mastering all of these bits and pieces that are highly technical about champagne, what we need is manpower.
Well, there's also a time commitment.
Right.
These wines need to be made as normal wines, which takes time. Then they need to undergo the second fermentation, which takes time. And then they are aging. Champagne gets its character so much from that yeast sitting in the bottle for years. The minimum aging period for champagne as it sits on its yeast, on its lees, is 15 months. And that is what you will see for less expensive wines. You're going to see a lot more than that on the good stuff. Probably, I would say 2 to 3 years minimum for a high quality champagne. And they can go on and on and on. And so, that is also really expensive. You need space and time is money. So all of these things add up to a product that is really high maintenance.
And this period of time in the 19th century, like this is also a time when the creation of champagne, the production of champagne is going to need to be streamlined. And that's something that's facilitated by the fact that we're industrializing the production of almost everything.
Everything is getting industrialized.
Right.
Everything is developing, these big sort of factory-like machines, which mean that you can produce a lot more volume and that you can standardize it. One of the reasons that champagne has longer foils typically than a normal wine is because the levels were inconsistent. But we are able to sort of fix that once we have these machines.
Well, and in industrializing it, we're also hyper specializing. It's like when you look at, making a Ford car on like on a whatever
Assembly line.
Assembly line. I know words. You're making a Ford on an assembly line. Everybody masters their piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
And in champagne, quite early on, we're going to kind of divide and conquer with the growers on one side and the houses on the other.
Yes.
Okay.
So in champagne, there is pretty unique structure, or it was a unique structure. It is pretty common now, but the houses would not be necessarily even owning the land of the vineyards. They would be buying grapes from landowning farmers. So in somewhere like Bordeaux, the chateau would own that land. In Champagne, they did not necessarily. Or if they did, they could have parcels here and there, but they were also still buying grapes. This is a system that's called being a négociant. That is something that we see really frequently. It is normal in the wine industry. But in Champagne, it was really consolidated. And the houses had a lot of power and money and branding and this name power. And then the farmers were really kind of screwed, because of this consolidation. The houses could fix the price of grapes and they never wanted to pay the farmers more. And so in the early 1900s, there were real political problems between the houses and the workers while they were demanding basically wage equalization. How would I say that? They were demanding.
They were trying to like improve the prices in favor of the farmers.
They were basically demanding that there were not fixed prices, that there was a price scale based on demand.
Okay. And even today, the houses, and when we talk about houses, like these are the names that people know.
This is
right?
Clicquot, this is Moet Chandon, this is Mumm, this is Dom Pérignon, Perrier-Jouet. These are the big houses.
Yeah. And so they still dominate the market for champagne today.
Absolutely. There are 370 houses in Champagne, and they control 82% of all of the production of champagne. That is also less today than it was 10 years ago, because what we're seeing now is actually a phenomenon of grower champagnes, and that is individual farmers who want to make their own champagne. The grower champagne makers are often pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
They're like in their 40s, they are in their 40s or younger. And they basically don't want to just farm. They want to make wine. And there wasn't a market for that in the 80s and 90s because people only cared about big brands. But today, real wine lovers don't really want big brands. I don't want to be drinking wine, that's made by LVMH necessarily. I want to be making, I want to be drinking wine that's made by people.
That's been a huge shift in the perception of champagne, especially recently, where for a long time, champagne, it seems to me, was marketed as an expensive conveyance of bubbles. And now it's really being showcased as a wine. And I know that
I mean, it is wine.
it is wine, but that we're highlighting its wineness. And one thing I've noticed I lead cheese tastings in Paris, and I often serve it with wine. And one of my favorite wines to serve with cheese is champagne.
It's a great pairing.
And French people hate that. And champagne makers love it.
That's so funny. French people drink a lot of champagne. France is the biggest consumer of champagne, and they drink a shit ton of it. And they drink it with Christmas. They drink it as aperitif. They do drink it a little bit with food. You don't think so? Maybe in our family. I married a wine merchant.
They tend to drink it. The way I've mostly seen it, I did not marry a wine merchant, but the way that I've mostly seen it is that they serve it with dessert.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that.
But when I have done tastings where there are French people present and I pour champagne with cheese, they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Trust me, it's fucking delicious."
It's awesome because it's bubbly and it's sharp. It cuts through the fat of the cheese.
Yeah. We have another trend, which is illustrated in some of the stuff that you've brought today, which is in glassware,
stemware. So we have these little coupes, which people love.
And that's another really fun myth, right? Because that's ostensibly Marie Antoinette's boob. I think the other way.
Too small for me. You want to try?
I think I probably fit.
Yeah, you fit in there.
Yeah.
Oh, that works.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Between the two of us, we get one champagne's worth of boob. One champagne coupe. These were popular.
Yeah.
Certainly these were popular in the 20th century. They are delightful. They're great for cocktails. This is a coupe, champagne coupe. Then we have flutes. Flutes are what most people drink out of now. And these are really basically to show off the bubble. So I'm actually going to open up our champagne here. We have a grower champagne from Jules Bonnet. This is a vintage champagne, 2013, which means instead of being a blend of multiple vintages, which most champagnes are, this is just from a single year, which is pretty cool. This is a Blanc de Noir, so it's 100% the Pinots.
So that's the Dom Pérignon champagne, but it's not Dom Pérignon at all.
Tiny producer, and it's from Premier Cru Vineyards. It says that on here. So we have a lot of
organic
here. Extra brut. So that could mean 0 dosage. No, this has 3 grams per liter of dosage, which is almost nothing. It even has a disgorgement date, November 2024, which is really cool. You got it. Ooh. So if we see our coupe here, you can hear the bubbles. And our flute. You can just see based on surface area that the coupe is going to lose bubbles a lot faster than the flute because there's more surface area and the bubbles are hitting the surface and then rising up. So people really like the flute because you have more bubbles, right?
And why did people like the coupe?
I don't know, because it's pretty.
Because it's pretty.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good reason. It is pretty.
It is a good reason.
Yeah. And then, but you can't swirl it. You're not really supposed to swirl champagne, but if you give these to a snip, Emily.
Oh, I definitely
it's
will.
Way less aromatic in the coupe. I can't really smell anything. Whereas in this, I can smell a lot of yeastiness. This already gives it a lot more character. But it has this teeny tiny opening, which means we're not getting much air. So even though that smells radically different, doesn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah, the coupe smells like nothing.
It's crazy how much it's got like a grapey smell. Like it really smells fruity.
And then
this one just kind of itches my nose.
This tulip glass. So this is actually a Dom Pérignon glass. And this is a sort of mix between a normal wine glass and a champagne flute. And this is where most wine people are landing on these days. We have that sort of thinner base, which allows us to keep those bubbles, but we still have enough room to get some air. Woo! That first sniff always goes straight into the back of your head. But then we have some air. We can swirl it around a little bit if we want, which will dissipate the bubbles, but this is wine. And then you can smell the difference.
Oh, yeah. Wow. You really can smell the difference. I think one thing that's also really cool about the evolution of glassware is it's going to evolve in not only like the way that we're drinking champagne, but the way that it's made. So back when it was still sludgy before, as you mentioned, the Veuve Clicquot
Mhm.
came in, you would almost like shoot your champagne and then turn your glass over to have like a saucer to accumulate your sludge.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah, and there's these weird pictures. I mean, we'll find some of this like antique glassware
Yeah.
where you'd kind of like turn your champagne cup over to filter out all your sludge. And then you have your beautiful 1920s coupe, your flute, which is all about the bubbles, and then your wine glass,
Yeah.
which is all about showing off champagne as a wine.
The wine, yeah. And so it's interesting because actually, this does still have some good aromatics, but over time, that's not going to develop as much because it doesn't have as much
Mm-hmm.
access to air. This will develop, but there's nowhere to trap that air for your nose to reach it, right?
In the coupe.
In the coupe, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I know I need to specify. In the flute, you have all those aromas that are kind of trapped in the glass,
Yeah.
and there is an argument for letting champagne go flat
Mm.
and smell more because it has this really interesting intentional oxidation and yeastiness that you do not get on other wines. It's what makes it so special. I mean, this smells nothing like a Veuve Clicquot. Veuve
Mhm.
Clicquot today is just pretty bog standard. It doesn't smell or taste like much. It is mass produced. It's what people love. They love it. They have a nostalgic connection to it. It is not super high quality, particularly in the scale of champagne, and it doesn't have a lot of character. Whereas something like this actually has a lot of character. It smells like yeast. It smells
Mhm.
like dough. It smells like ripe apples, almost like overripe apples, like slightly rotting apples, which is funny.
Mhm.
But that is what we want from it. It has a richness and a depth. Like it has a toastiness.
Mhm.
And I think that's something you really get from oak aging and from time. It is very dry. Ooh, even with that 3 grams of sugar per liter, it's not doing much. It is sharp. It's making my mouth water. It has a lot of acidity. It's
Okay.
very lean. Um, it's good. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
I like it. It's
Yeah.
got a
It's got a nice finish, has a nice yeasty
really
finish.
nice
Yeah.
finish.
It's proper wine.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And I think when you're shopping for champagne, it how expensive are you willing to go? That's the thing. It's expensive. It's expensive to make.
Mhm.
For the big houses, my favorite ones are always the independent ones like Bollinger
Mhm.
and Laurent Perrier. I really like Paul Rocher. Bruno Paillard is really good for the big houses. Krug is obviously incredible. It's really expensive.
Mhm.
I'm not really interested in Moet or Veuve
Mhm.
Clicquot. Champagne has never had more competition.
Yeah.
Prosecco has made huge gains, especially in the US recently. Prosecco hit the UK hard, 20 years ago, but
Mhm.
Prosecco is currently really taken over in the States. And I think we're seeing the Champenois kind of struggle a little bit because especially in times of recession too, it's pretty easy to cut back on champagne.
Mhm.
And it is a product that is very expensive. So I'm not sure what the future of champagne is. I think more and more wine people are interested in grower champagne.
Yeah, definitely. I
Right.
mean, it'll be definitely interesting to see what's changing, what's evolving, where this goes, especially with the effects of climate change, big houses buying land in
In
England.
England. But they have always managed to meet the times and innovate. And that is something that we see time and time again in Champagne. They are never going to stop. They're never going to be like, oh, woe is me. I guess this isn't working. They're like, no, they're going to figure out what works. They're very good at marketing. They're very good at branding. They're very good at aligning themselves with media personalities and media trends. And I think we're going to see some interesting developments in the world of Champagne in the next 20 years.
And we'll be here telling you all about them.
Yeah. And I hope this didn't shit on let's see. And there it is, champagne down the toilet. No. Oh, God.
Um, so I hope we didn't shit too much on your champagne dreams.
And we are the real Fishwives of Paris. Au revoir.